So I was asked by a wonderful subscriber, two questions. How do I retain the material? How do I learn? How do I make sure that I learn? And then how would somebody prepare for grad school? Now, I'm not qualified to give advice on somebody in the math field because I did not do a bachelor's in math. For somebody in physics, I already have a couple of physics videos that I've already made. So this is just a prop. I'm just talking through this video, and I made myself a little outline. And so in my case, I'm really in lane A. And so I'm in the beginning of the fourth year, so I've already done 4 years of study at about 500 hours a year, roughly. And at that pace, I can do 2,500 hours in 5 years. Somebody who was like a half-timer, usually a job is 2,000 hours a year, so a half-time job would be 1,000, that's 5,000. If you were a math major and you did 5 years, say a bachelor's, or maybe like a year of master's or the first year of your grad school, you could get to what's considered mastery. I think 10,000 hours is a benchmark. The reason why I have this here is because it all depends on which group you're in, what your retention level will be. Now, I'm going to address the retention level for my pace, which is a self-learner. It's actually very tricky because of my constraints, of course. And my constraints are that I don't have a professor, I don't have a library, I don't have peers, and I'm on a linear plan. So I forget a lot of what I learned. I know that for a fact. And the way to address that is to do multiple passes. I'm doing a first pass in which I meet material for the first time. And then there will have to be additional passes in which I review material and I test myself from things that I learned years ago. And that is one flaw of the self-teaching part-time thing. But of course, people like me, that's all we can do. All right. So as a self-learner, I'm here. If I was retired and I had lots of time for this hobby, I could do 1,000. If I was a pro, and I believe some of my subscribers are pros, I believe some of my subscribers are math majors, and if you are, then you're a pro and you're lucky, because then you've got a whole way to retain what you learn that I don't have. So yeah, so maybe later I'll be retired and I'll do 1,000 hours, maybe never. I'll be a professional, I'll be able to take courses in a math program. I don't think that's in the cards for me. But yeah, so then now I'll talk about the yield. Very important, the thing that I've noticed in the case of my work is I know for a fact my yield has increased. It naturally increases the more math content that you cover in your undergraduate, or in my case, I'm covering undergraduate my own way, and that prepares you, would prepare somebody for grad school. Although, of course, I will say I am not qualified to give anybody advice who's in a math major on what they should or shouldn't do to get ready for graduate school. That should be the responsibility of your program, and you have professionals who are helping you, and those are the people who are going to tell you what you need to know. I think one of the problems that I see in YouTubing, I aim not to be part of that problem, is to give advice on things that I don't have any authority whatsoever to give on. And a lot of people in YouTube there's thousands and thousands of videos on YouTube. Well, somebody will give you all kinds of advice of what to do when it's clear they have no qualifications whatsoever to give it to you. So I can address how I retain my learning, and that may help somebody for their graduate school. But I would say beware. No, you should get your best advice from people in your program. I'm sure you have an advisor, or like an undergraduate advisor. That's the person to ask, not some random dude on the interwebs. So then I will only I'll forget about the whole thing about how do you prepare for grad school. Again, I've resigned my responsibilities there, and I'll stick to my own ability to learn the material. Now, I have learned the hard way, and this is true. Many people say math is a contact sport. I completely agree. It's all about the problems. Now, in the now, there's a now view and there's a forever view. Do you learn something in a forever way where you always know it? E equals mc squared, F equals ma. Yes, there is a way to do that. And I have learned some things in mathematics that I've taught myself that I know for a fact. And I can just spiel them out. And this is why I actually kept this prop, things like what I've learned in FIS of, you start with a linear independent set. maybe just one vector. You keep adding vectors till you get to a basis. Then when you add more, then you have a generating set which clearly is not linearly independent. Boom. You learned that, you know it, period. So then there's the fine details of the now, okay? The fine details of the now is you have to do a lot of problems. You just have to do that. And there's, of course, the concept of the ladder that I've discussed in the previous video that I think is a first one to this, of how I organize and plan my work. And of course, you have to set up a ladder of learning for any subject where the books that you work on are successively harder, but you're not trying to do the hard book before the easy book, or just the hard book. There's this ego thing that says, I'm going to sit down and do like a graduate level, algebraic geometry book. Forget it. Just don't do that. That is an advice that I can safely give you if you're entertaining such an endeavor. Then, of course, as you guys have seen with my work, note-taking is very important so you can easily go back to the material. Everybody learns a different way. Some people don't take hardly any notes and learn the material their own way. That's perfectly beautiful. In my case, I actually learn a lot in the process of writing it down because I'm reading it and I'm trying to transcribe it. So repetition, everybody knows repetition works really well for retention. And this is why you'll see me on the channel that I'll do a linear algebra book, Anton, and I'll do a second linear algebra book where I'm going over the same whole thing, now with proofs. And I did that for analysis, and I did that for number theory, and I plan to continue to do that. Actually, if I have the time, my dream is to take a subject and do like 6 different books on the subject that are progressively harder. I'm not sure when I'm going to do that because there's so many different subjects that I want to treat. As an aside, so of course, what do you do for your learning? How do you solve these problems? Obviously, you're going to find some videos, go to Wikipedia, professors have pages. Beware of answers on the web. I have found them to be wrong. I did so in number theory. But this is the whole business of how you do your problems. But how you retain, there are many ways you can come up to self-test yourself. The best way to self-test is to try to explain what you learned to somebody you don't know. Okay, or somebody you know. Hey, I learned about quadratic reciprocity. Oh, what is it? Oh, it's just kind of like a way in which prime numbers are related to other prime numbers. I'm not sure that's the best way to explain it, but that's what I would say. And then there's a forever view. Forever view has revisits, has more discussions. In my case, for number theory, I did film myself solving some problems as a self-test. I did a bunch of Legendre symbols. I want to do that again, but I found that that's nice, that's good, but there's just so much material that I want to cover that I'm willing to give up a little bit of retention for the benefit of first contact. So that's all I have. If hit me in the comments, whatever I didn't hit. Oh, actually, one final thing is, I would say this is the one thing that I always recommend to anybody, having been a graduate student in physics and meeting crackpots. And I know for a fact that anybody who's in the self-learning sphere of mathematics can easily fall for the trap of becoming a crackpot. What is a crackpot? Somebody who has unrealistic expectations about what they can do in a field when they're clearly not a full-timer. Okay, and I know for a fact, I always try to hit myself with humility as much as I can to understand there's only so much I'm going to learn in this setup, and no, I'm not going to prove some big theorem that all the professionals, that evaded the professionals. I'm not going to do that.